So let's talk about the Asterisk film.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Hey travelers, welcome back to Roberto's Room. So I wanted to talk about Thunderbolts. Yes, I finally was able to see Thunderbolts. It actually dropped on Disney Plus over the weekend, and I was finally able to give it a watch. I have not been going to the movies that much, so I've kind of been waiting for these movies to come on Disney Plus. I have a subscription. Why not, right? And with the way that Marvel's track record has been, which has honestly been kind of spotty, I figured that was the best way to do it. So, like I said, finally was able to watch it over the weekend, and I wanted to talk about it because this movie is very different from Brave New World. And here's what I mean by that. Unlike Brave New World, which it was very, very evident that really there was nothing to say, and it was reshot and redone, retooled, rewritten to oblivion. Thunderbolts actually feels like it has something to say, which I actually caught on from the trailers. Even back when I made my fixing Phase 4 and Phase 5 videos, I had already seen the Thunderbolts trailers that Marvel had released, and I realized that Marvel was trying to say something. Now, did I like what they had to say? Honestly, yes, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, why I'm actually rushing to make this video, and it's not really the way I usually make videos. I usually plan them out a little bit more, but I wanted this to be a little bit more off the cuff to give you my opinion, because I feel like this movie deserves that much of attention. Because unlike most of the things that we have seen post-Endgame, this movie actually, I kind of regret not supporting in theaters, and I'm going to talk about why. Before we get into it though, if you would, please drop a like down below and drop a comment. Have you seen Thunderbolts? I would love to hear if you have before we get into this review. And as well, if you would, please subscribe. We would love to have you on board the channel so I can continue to make videos like this. We have a lot more videos down the pipeline, and I am so excited to share them with you. But every subscription, every like, every view helps the channel, so I'm glad to have you, and I'm glad that you're here. Well, without further ado, let's get into Thunderbolts.
Smile, everyone! We're back.
The main problem with Thunderbolts, and I wanted to get the elephant out of the room right at the beginning, is most of the characters that are in Thunderbolts, with very few exceptions, are characters that Marvel has come out with ever since the Endgame era, or the Infinity War era, has ended. And I'm talking, of course, about Phase 4 and now Phase 5. These are brand new characters for the most part. There are some exceptions. The exceptions, of course, being Ghost, who was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was sandwiched right in between Infinity War and Endgame, and of course, one of the franchise mainstays who has been with us since Phase 1. I think he is one of the only characters that has made it all the way from Phases 1 on, will be, I'm assuming, in Phase 6, given the fact that he's already had a chair in Doomsday. So he is, of course, Bucky, the Winter Soldier, and he is honestly the character that I would have thought would have been leading. But of course, we're in a post-Endgame world, and of course, we can't have a male lead without some kind of female counterpart. Now, I will say this much as far as Florence Pugh's Yelena Belova is concerned. Out of all of the new characters in Phase 4 that have kind of been, for lack of a better term, a Marvel replacement character, she is an obvious replacement for Black Widow, she is one of the best, and I think that Florence Pugh, having been cast in that role, helps the character along really well, and really gives what would have been just another throwaway character, of which there have been a lot, really for the detriment of the characters themselves, because in the comics, these characters are great characters in and of their own right. The way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe decides to use them has been a real disservice to the characters themselves, and honestly, I'm really thankful in that regard that Stan Lee is not around to watch this, and it has not been around since Endgame, although I do miss him terribly. But what they've done to his characters, I think, has been absolutely lacking in direction, lacking in everything. So the fact that I didn't go see Thunderbolts, it is what it is. but the fact that you had someone like Florence Pugh, who has come in to play this character of Yelena Belova, of course, although she, in the hands of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is a replacement character for Black Widow, she does her best job and really carries this film in a really meaningful way that is not really in the realm of the girl boss, which I am really, really happy for. I'm really tired of all of these girl boss films, and that's, I mean, I probably may have a discussion about that later on in another video, because I think that on a whole it's killing Disney and killing classics, but also killing in the terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel Studios. It's killing those movies as well. So I'm thankful that this movie had a lot of female characters that felt like real people, and I loved that Yelena Belova, this was her struggle film, and this was what they tried to make Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the series on Disney Plus that almost nobody watched, about for Bucky. Because honestly, I feel like, and if you've watched my breakdown of how I would fix Phase 4 and Phase 5, some of the scenes that they put in Falcon and the Winter Soldier for Bucky, I feel like should have been put in this film, because like I mentioned in the movie Aftermath, the movie I reviewed a few weeks ago with Dylan Sprouse, this movie touches on PTSD, touches on a lot of mental illness and dealing with your past, dealing with trauma, but this movie, I feel, as well as it didn't go far enough. And I think this is due to the whole Marvel movie making machine, that we need to have a third act that is bombastic and is cool, and although it has something to say, which was a really good message, and I applaud Marvel for making this. I applaud Jake Schreier, who was the director of this film, and the writers, that it actually felt for once since Endgame there was a clear path, a clear, this is what we want to say, this is what we want to explore, and we do that in various facets with all of the different characters, except for Taskmaster, because if you know, you know. I'm not gonna spoil it, but just watch the movie, you'll see. But all of the other characters, Ghost, Red Guardian, John Walker, Bucky, all of them, Yelena, they have all been through their own journeys of pain, their own versions of suffering, their own hard lives, and it never comes off disingenuine, the suffering, and they're kind of talking about their own suffering. It honestly comes off very endearing, and again, this is why I feel like Marvel, first of all, didn't market this movie well enough. They tried to market it like an A24 film, which honestly was the best trailer this movie had, but it didn't market the movie as what it was, which is really a deep dive into grief. And Bob as well, the Sentry. I love that they introduced him in this film, and I love that they really quickly jump into his multiple persona, which is a big part of his character. And because this movie is exploring grief, he is one, of course, that is living it. He is the nerve of the film in that he is dealing with the issues right then and there. He has not lived past these issues like the rest of the Thunderbolts, but is experiencing these issues right now. Of course, him being strung up on heroin and being signed up for the Sentry Project by Contessa Valentina de Fontaine, is very important. She has signed him up for this that he doesn't really know about. He kind of woke up in a lab after getting some blood drawn, and he is really, along with Yelena, the heart of this film. Bucky is there because I don't think they could have sold this movie without Bucky there, and Red Guardian as well. I feel like those two characters are great, and seeing them play off each other are great. But the heart of this film is definitely Bob, and not Bub, let's not confuse Wolverine here, Bob and Yelena, who really carry this film and really have a great relationship as these broken people that are just trying to make it. In the case of Bob, of course, this is his film in many ways, where he is struggling with this grief and this past that he has, a very real trauma most people go through in their life, and he is having to deal with it in real time. So these characters that have already been through it in the Thunderbolts, even Red Guardian, who is facing now having been an awesome character in his own right, in his own time, now really being a washed up Santa, as Valentina points out. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is chewing up the scenery here. For everyone that said that Julia Louis-Dreyfus was trying to quip, I don't understand what they think quipping means, because she didn't drop a quip once, and everything that she said actually made her a real force to be reckoned with, at least for me. I know a lot of people that walked out of Thunderbolts thought it was a really nothing movie, and I think that the reason for that is because of the second act. This movie has a phenomenal first act and a really phenomenal third act, where, yes, we have that big bombastic Marvel thing, but it actually services the point of grief. But how we get there between point A and point C, that point B, is really, really muddled, and I think this is where a lot of people were lost and why this movie didn't do as well as it did. The second act of this movie is highly flawed, and how you get there, it feels rushed, but then at the same time, not fast enough. It's a weird feeling, and I don't know if maybe that's because some things got left on the cutting room floor. I'm pretty sure, giving Marvel's track record for the last 5 years, that there's probably a whole other movie on the cutting room floor that was probably a lot darker. Here's Looking at You, David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad, because I feel like they touch on a lot of similar things, but I feel like this movie succeeds in many ways that that movie doesn't, even though, like I said, the second act doesn't do this movie any favors at all. However, the third act actually sticks the landing, which was actually really cool to see, that this movie actually has a really cool ending. And okay, yes, we're gonna talk about the whole renaming thing because it's been out there for a while. This movie was called Thunderbolts, but of course the asterisk meant that they were gonna call it something else. I was banking on it being called the Dark Avengers. It was actually called the New Avengers, which is I guess the new title for this film, although everybody still calls it the Thunderbolts, which this team, comically speaking, is not really the Thunderbolts, because the Thunderbolts would mean that they are led by General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, which is in prison in the Raft. So it's kind of weird the way I get the name in the movie comes from the Pee Wee softball team from Yelena's past, but I don't know, naming this movie the Thunderbolts always made it feel like, yes, of course, they're going to rename it something else. They're just going to try to use that as a marketing gimmick, which they didn't even wait like a week after this movie was released. They already put out the new title in there, which, of course, they should have just called it the New Avengers. I mean, honestly, that's what this movie should have been titled. But, of course, we have to call it the Thunderbolts because you have to have something to sell this movie on, because, God forbid, you sell this movie on what it actually wants to be, which is a exploration of grief that could have been very meaningful, but because of the middling second act, and as well with the terrible, absolutely terrible marketing and that whole gimmick of the Thunderbolts, we already knew was not going to be called the Thunderbolts because of the whole asterisk. That was everybody's question on every interview I saw for all of the people that were interviewing the actors for this film. And of course, they couldn't say anything, but of course, we knew it was going to be some offshoot of Avengers, some different Avengers name, West Coast Avengers, Dark Avengers, some Avengers. So, of course, it's the New Avengers, and that's the title that we have. And I feel like those things, the bad marketing, the gimmicks, and the second act, of course, which I mentioned, took away from what would have been, I think, a really good, meaningful movie that deserves its place in the MCU, unlike most of the slop that we've been experiencing the last 5 years. But because of Marvel's consistent bad decisions, somebody wake up Feige from this fever dream that he's been in since COVID. I think, honestly, COVID got to him, and in his brain, like, his brain's been gone for the last 5 years, because this doesn't even feel like the same Kevin Feige that led us to a triumphant victory in Endgame. This feels like somebody replaced him. I feel, honestly, like Secret Invasion was him telling the world, yes, I've been replaced by a Skrull, because what in the world is this? Like, this is terrible. It hasn't been that long. Okay, technically it has. It's been 9 years. Dang. It's been 9 years since Civil War, and that movie was genius. Captain America Winter Soldier, Thor Ragnarok, like, they were batting 1,000 not too long ago. And the fact that we have a movie that could have been a good hit, one in a very long time for Marvel, and they tripped at the finish line with terrible marketing, terrible editing, and didn't really let the real, this is what I want to be, of the movie, because you didn't have somebody like Hugh Jackman or Ryan Reynolds that, you know, could bully Kevin Feige into, no, let us make our film, is really bad. And I feel bad for this film because it could have been something truly great. Instead, we're stuck with another middling Marvel movie that feels like it's half-baked because everything around the creative decisions was half-baked, and everyone that's really calling the shots led to these harebrained, half-baked decisions that it makes it just sad. And honestly, in a kind of beautiful way, makes us have to endure trauma of our own in having to watch this film, which lends to the overall message of the film itself. But hey, maybe your mileage will vary on this film. Like I said, I actually enjoyed this movie, but I feel like there's another movie that is there somewhere on the cutting room floor, and they didn't let this movie breathe enough to get there. Again, I thought the first act was solid. The stunt work in this film is actually really good. The fights of this film were actually really, really cool. And the third act, I think, sticks the landing and really does something meaningful. But again, the middle act is just something that is terrible, and the marketing and everything around this film does it a great disservice. I really hope, which I know we never will get, that we would get a director's cut of Thunderbolts, because I feel like that would be an amazing film. But of course, we can't have director's cuts in the MCU for some apparent reason, because I feel like there is a great movie here, but it was lost. And I would love to see what that movie would have been. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Please drop a like, and again, if you haven't, I know a lot of y'all watch my reviews and don't subscribe, come on over to the channel. I mean, we have fun here. We talk about movies here, and I love having these open discussions where we ham it up in the comments and we talk about things that we care about, because I want the MCU to be great. And it could be great, but decisions like the ones that kneecapped the new Avengers are just par for the course since Avengers Endgame. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting fed up with it. Thank you so much for watching this review with me, travelers, and as always, go with grace.